I'll watch for folks to come.
Okay. So we have a few of you here today. Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen so you don't have to look at my face. But let me, okay. All right, so I assume you guys can see the screen here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, so what we're going to talk about mainly today is just lien laws in Utah. Obviously, the one caveat to that is that liens are very different from state to state. So from the beginning, I'll just say, if you do any kind of work outside of Utah, just double check with me that the rules are similar or different, or how they might be different. But most of the people that are going to be looking at this today and in the near future are in Utah primarily. So that's what we're going to focus on, is how it's done in Utah. Okay, so let me just pull this up here then. Okay. All right. So, and then just from a high level, some of you may already know this, but we have multiple different companies that are associated with Irvine Legal. And so if you ever see some of our other branding, just know that it's still us in the background, whether we're talking at you directly as the law firm or whether it's through one of our affiliated companies. So for those that aren't as familiar with our approach, I'll just simply say we obviously focus a lot on the legal services, and 90+% of our clients are in the construction and trades. With that, we work a lot with the tax dynamics for those companies. We kind of have a unique billing model that a lot of law firms and tax planning companies don't have. We work a lot with helping companies to increase their valuation so one day they can sell. So we do some coaching on that. But ultimately, our whole mission is really to help try to take some of the stress out of running your business day to day. One thing, just kind of as a free value and as a thank you for being here, and you can obviously talk to my team offline if you don't have the ability to scan this. But if you have a company in Utah and you want a law firm to be your official contact for anything that comes official from the IRS or from the state, then you just scan this code and it'll ask you information about your business, like 3 or 4 questions, and we'll just make that change within the next couple of days free of charge.
What's a registered agent? Is that you?
Yeah, well, I do serve as a registered agent, yes, but a registered agent is technically the official contact for the company.
Oh.
And so especially it's relating to our issue today as we're talking about liens, making sure that you have a clear official contact in case there are disputes or issues or questions about liens. It's important that you can do this yourself. I don't want you to think you can't, but a lot of times it's just one more thing that people deal with. And frankly, I think the way it breaks down pricing wise is it ends up being like $7 a month or something for us to do it. So it's not worth the hassle and the risk of missing lawsuits and deadlines just because of that. So anyway, that's a free thing. Again, free to change. And then we renew your company every year and go from there. So, all right. But the meat and potatoes today of what we're really talking about is liens and how they work and what are some of the mechanics that we need to follow. And we could obviously spend hours and hours on this, and I am not going to bore you to death. I am going to try to give some high-level things and some best practices so that we can all improve our business. And the 3 areas that I'm going to really hit on are, number 1, what are called pre-liens or a preliminary notice of lien. Number 2 is the actual construction lien itself. And then number 3 is kind of how do we enforce liens and how do we foreclose on those liens in a legal process. So Utah has had for at least, since the early 2010s, right around there, a procedure called the State Construction Registry, or the SCR. And the idea behind this is to try, and it may not work as well as everybody had hoped, but at least it's trying to help people be aware of potential liens and the potential people that are working on jobs and on certain projects. And so for the pre-lien process, this is where it all starts. And so what you have to do is you have to create an account for the company, or if you hire a third party, they probably have their own account. Like my law firm has an account. We do this for a lot of our clients. But if you want to do this on your own, you set up your own account through the state construction registry. And then every time you start a new job, you need to file a preliminary notice of lien. So you'd log into that account and it gives you about 10 different options. The one thing you're going to need to be aware of is it's going to have you put in certain information. So you're going to need to know the address of the property. You might need to know the tax parcel ID number for the property. You might need to know the owner's name and kind of the scope of your work that you're doing. So there's about 5 or 6 different things you need. And then you file it. And you might not need to do anything else with it as long as you get paid on the job. So the only time you're going to ever go on to step 2 is if you don't get paid fully on the job.
Do you just have to close it out?
It's not really a closeout. It's on there. Sometimes people ask for you to remove them. You can do that. You don't always have to. It just depends on the job itself. But it's not like open file. It's just kind of a little placeholder that potentially you might have a claim because you worked on the job. So that's number 1. The second part is the deadline. It's super important, and this is frankly why a lot of people hire others to do it, because the deadlines are unforgiving. So in order to preserve your future lien rights, because it starts with a pre-lien, you must file a pre-lien no later than 20 days from starting the job. Now, a lot of times when we start work, we're really busy and we're getting things going. We're ordering materials, we're coordinating teams and crews and all that fun stuff. And so it's really easy to forget right there at the beginning of the job. My best practice recommendation and what I do for clients is when you go under contract for the job, when you know you're going to start the job, go and file the pre-lien then. There's not a rule that says you can't file it before you start. It just says you can't file it later than 20 days after you start. So, and if you miss that deadline of 20 days, it's possible you can still file the pre-lien and still get some of the money. But if you eventually have to use a construction lien because you didn't get paid, you're not going to be able to claim the full amount of the lien because the rule says if you file it late, anything that happens before that late filing deadline, then you're not going to be able to use for a future lien. What that means as a practical matter is that if your jobs tend to be 10 or 20 days in length total, then if you miss the deadline, you effectively miss the ability to use a construction lien at all. If your jobs take longer than 20 days and you miss the deadline, then you probably are okay to still go through that process because there's still more work you're going to do after the late filing that you would potentially be able to use for a lien later. It's a long way of saying that no matter how you handle the pre-lien process, whether you do it internally or externally, whoever is in charge of it just needs to be super detailed because there's just deadlines and certain things that are going to be coming to that person as soon as they file a pre-lien. So any questions on the pre-liens in general, kind of what it is anyway?
Go ahead, Miley.
Do you have to have like a certain amount to file a lien, or can you file one for $300?
Yeah,
when you
file a pre-lien, you don't even specify the amount of the claim because you don't know yet. You just talk about your scope of work and that you're on the job. But legally, if you're not paid for something, you could file a construction lien for $1 if there's $1. But now maybe that's silly because it's going to cost you, a couple $100 to file a construction lien and all that fun stuff. Maybe at some point it's not worth it. But for a pre-lien, it costs you a few dollars to file it with the state through their website. If you do it on your own, like I said, those are things my team covers. But yeah, that's a good question though.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's the other part, and why I recommend that whoever's handling pre-liens needs to be super detailed. It's because whenever a pre-lien is filed, the one thing you have to do is you have to include your email when you file a pre-lien. And that email address, whatever you use, is going to receive multiple notifications throughout the rest of the job. They're going to get notifications from everybody else who files pre-liens. So they might get it from other GCs or subs. They might get it from the person who's bringing in the wood material or some of the siding, if those are ordered through a supply house, for example. Bottom line, if you go down that road, you're going to receive multiple emails. And if you are not good at filtering emails or dealing with a lot of that, you might miss some of the ones that are important. So whoever handles it, make sure that he or she is detailed. The one thing that is super important to know about when you get pre-liens is what's called the notice of completion. If you're a GC, you're the one that normally files it, so you would know if you're filing it. But for a GC, it's super important to do this because you'll get notice of everybody else who's on the job. And if you don't recognize certain companies filing things, then you can reach out and say, hey, what are you doing? And then obviously make sure everybody gets paid. If you're a sub, the notice of completion is super important because of what happens with the construction lien process. And I'll get into that in a second. But pre-liens are best practice for anybody. And I've heard lots of clients in the years say, I don't want to go and file pre-liens because ultimately I'm not going to file a lawsuit. And they're just kind of making a lot of assumptions along the way. And the problem with that is because the timelines of pre-liens, you don't really know how a job's going to do. You don't know if you're going to get fully paid. You don't know if you're going to have a good relationship with your client. And by the time you realize it might be going off the rails, it's probably too late to file a pre-lien. And so you kind of just have to manage it as a business risk. Either you file them or you don't. I would not try to play the guessing game of, well, I'm only going to file it if a job is of a certain size, because you don't know what the sizes will always end up being. Anyway, that's my little soapbox for a second. But before we move on to construction liens, any other questions on pre-liens?
Does the owner know that you put one on? Because I feel like that would be a mistrust from the owner and then they'd be butt heads.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. The owner would not necessarily know that there's a pre-lien that's filed because it's not the traditional lien that gets recorded with the county or that you send them in some kind of a certified letter. Now, if they were to look up their own property, they would be able to see those things. But the only property owners, the only clients that I know of yours that would even know about the SCR and the pre-lien stuff would probably be other contractors or real estate developers who are familiar with the building process.
Okay.
So there's very few.
What does SCR stand for?
State Construction Registry.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, so now here's where the notice of completion becomes super important. When you finish a job or when there is substantial completion of the job, then it starts a clock for you as a contractor to decide whether or you are going to file a construction lien. Now, the construction lien is the official one. It is the one that your clients, the property owners, are going to receive a notice about. There are two deadlines for when you need to file construction lien. And the difference between it is based on whether or not a notice of completion gets filed with the state construction registry. So at least in Utah, and again, every state's different, In Utah, the normal default timing is 180 days from the end of your job for you to file a construction lien. That doesn't sound like,
From
that hard to figure out. But if the owner or if the general files a notice of completion, that time gets cut in half to 90 days. So this part and determining when or if you're going to file a construction lien becomes really important for you to have good books and good accounting and good billing practices. Because if it normally takes you 1 or 2 months to get paid and you maybe didn't see that they filed a notice of completion on the job, you could quickly lose your construction lien rights without too much delay. So again, I just go back to the beginning that whoever handles the pre-lien process needs to be super organized, super detailed, and kind of on top of things. But the second part is whoever's handling billing and invoicing also has to be on top of things. Because I often will reach out to clients that we do their pre-liens for, and I'll ask if they're still on the job, and they'll say, oh no, we finished the job. And I'll say, great, are you still owed any money? It's been about 60 days. Are you still owed any money? And they'll say, oh, I don't know. I haven't sent them the final invoice yet. Well, that's a problem because of those potential deadlines. So, and one thing that's important to know is even if you miss the construction lien deadlines, that doesn't mean you still don't have a claim based on the contract you had with that client. You just lose the construction lien option. Now, it's usually better to have the lien rights, but it's not the end of the world if you miss it. You just made it a little bit harder on yourself is all. So anyway, so you have the deadline. And then when you do this, this is a document that has to be recorded. It has to be recorded in the county where the real estate exists. And so, and then there's a process that after you get it recorded, you have to send a copy of the recorded lien by certified mail within 30 days. Once it's recorded, it triggers another timeline. It triggers another 6 months for you to decide whether you are going to start a lawsuit to foreclose on that lien and sell the property in exchange, well, at least in partial exchange for the money that you are owed. So the construction lien process can be super fast. If we're talking about 6 months here, that's a lot faster than normal lawsuits. Some lawsuits can take, years and years to deal with. And so it's really important to just make sure you have options. 90% of my clients that go through the construction lien process never file a lawsuit, but it gives them a lot of leverage in order to negotiate with their clients, because nobody wants to be told they're being forced to sell a home either. So I don't want to be a jerk, but you guys have to protect your business, and this is one of the ways you do it. With all of this, again, back to what I said in the beginning about making sure it's a detailed person that's handling, you just have to track these. You have to figure out, how am I going to create and record and enforce these things? It's just one of the many systems that we manage as business owners, and one that frankly has a huge impact for contractors and for the ability for you to collect 100% of the money that you earn. It's unfortunate that sometimes people aren't honest and won't pay their bills without being forced to, but this is the reality we all have to operate within. So I encourage you to make sure you have some kind of a structure, and I'm more than happy to help outline how some of those steps might look like for you and for your company. So let's pause for a second. Questions about the construction lien process or any of those steps that I've already mentioned?
So recording and enforcing
Ferguson.
Sorry.
the liens, you said, basically, I would just need to be, super detailed, know what I'm collecting, know where in the collection process and in the billing process that client is, if we have an open lien.
Right.
Is that right? I didn't, you had some bullet points there, but I didn't know if I missed anything.
No, I mean, yeah, from a general perspective, yes, it's about being organized.
Mhm.
But because there are 3 different phases to the lien process, there's making sure we file all the pre-liens the right way, making
Mhm.
sure when we finish the job, we bill, quickly and fully and on time,
Mhm.
making sure that we monitor any deadlines that come up to know whether we need to file a construction lien if we haven't been paid,
Yeah.
and monitoring to make sure we need to file a lawsuit or at least escalate it in some way if they're still not paying.
If
So,
they're not paying in a timely manner or when our terms are.
right.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that can come up, frankly, and a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And it's not candidly what a lot of us excel at. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of my clients, they say, look, I'm really good at billing, I'm good at estimating, I'm good at managing the project. Don't talk to me about billing. Don't talk to me about bookkeeping. Don't talk to me about how to collect on some of this stuff, because we all kind of have this hope and belief that people will be honest and
Yeah.
they'll
Right.
shoot straight with us. And unfortunately, it's not always the case.
Yeah.
Good question.
All right.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Mel, I don't know if you wanted to talk at all about this, but I'll mention this because a lot of times this comes up. For those that are on our contractor monthly service package, just know that we cover the pre-lien process as part of that monthly fee. So if you have any questions about that, obviously you can reach out to myself or my team, but construction liens and lawsuits are separate, but that preliminary stage of putting in the pre-liens is included. So frankly, some of our clients, that's the only reason they have us on their monthly service, because it's such a lifesaver and a time saver for them. But just know that those are some of the things that exist.
Am I on that?
I
Okay.
think so.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are.
Cool.
Let's see here. Okay. And then here's the last thing. And just as a resource for anybody, if you want a follow-up from this call, or I mean, some of you might already have our contact information, obviously. But if you don't, you can scan the QR code and you could just give us your contact information, and myself or Mel from my team will reach out and chat with you about liens, if that's what's keeping you up at night, or some other things. Also, there's our office number as well on this, so that you could call and schedule a time if you wanted to chat more directly with myself. So now that's all that today was supposed to be, is just a super high level. But actually, one of the most important things a lot of contractors forget is about this whole pre-lien lien dynamic. And so, I mean, we can wrap it up with any other questions anybody else has, or we can follow up offline, but I'll kind of open it up in case Mel or anybody else has some other questions that you want me to make sure we cover.
We love Mel.
I didn't pay her to say that, just so you're aware.
Thanks for
love you
having
too,
her.
Riley.
I don't have any more questions. Can I have the recording though for Rocky?
Yeah, for sure. We'll send out the recording to anybody who attended. And then it's not confidential, so feel free to share it if you have other friends or business associates that this would be helpful. You should be able to share it with them as well. But
Okay.
thanks so much for everybody coming out. I'm gonna unshare the screen, and then I think we'll wrap this up. Mel, unless you want to hit anything else.
No, I just appreciate it. For those contractors and businesses that are on our contractor package, like Joshua said, the pre-lien process is part of the package. And so I very much encourage you to use that portion of the package. There's lots of value there, and we help make sure that it gets filed. And then we're also helping you in the background to track it. So very valuable. So thank you again for everybody who joined us for the call today. Great to see your faces. And thank you, Joshua, for taking us through the topic today. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.